Perfect. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this information session where we're going to learn about the Luksic Scholarship at the Blavatnik School of Government at the University of Oxford. My name is Gabrielle Trasati. I'm the International Outreach Coordinator for the Luksic Foundation. And I will go ahead and kickstart today's event. So here's what to expect. I'll give some information regarding the Luksic Foundation and the different initiatives and projects that we support. And then we are joined by our wonderful guest today, Dr. Achenda Gambles, and she's the Director of Admissions there at the Blavatnik School of Government. She will provide an overview of the school, essentially what kind of candidates are looking for, their vision. And then with Beatriz, admissions officer, she'll go over the more finite details of what the application process looks like, how to access the Luksic Scholarship. Also, all relevant links, any sort of information that you may need to go ahead and apply or start applying to the program. And then we do have a Luksic scholar, Patricio Alvarez. A big congratulations to him. He graduated from the program this year. He will get to share his firsthand insights as a student, as a recent graduate, so you know what to expect when you go on program. And we will have time for a Q&A, so do keep in mind you have this direct access to Dr. Achenda, to Beatriz, to a Luksic scholar. So if you do have any questions at the end, don't hesitate to reach out to ask. And we will send a recording of this session to you via email in case you do need to go back and review anything. So in terms of the Luksic Foundation, beyond international education, we have a few other areas in which we work. So education, we're namely working with vocational training centers and students here in Chile. In entrepreneurship, we have wonderful initiatives which entrepreneurs can apply to certain financing, but also to mentorships and workshops. In sports, we are looking at this more from a community building basis. We do have football or soccer schools for kids in which we involve the families, for example. We also have field hockey schools for girls. And lastly, in additional support, this takes form in namely donations and emergencies when emergency situations do come about within the country. So more specifically in international education, our vision is really to connect Chile with the world. We're hoping to connect or create, I would say, stronger connections between Chile and the global academic community so that we can better address today's challenges and, of course, those of the future. So that's why we're promoting access for Chileans to be part of these wonderful international programs, such as the Master of Public Policy at the Blavatnik School of Government. These are always in collaboration with international institutions. And so our history actually goes back over 20 years. That's when the first sort of international program started. And since then, we have been able to implement over 30 programs across 7 countries in collaboration with over 18 institutions, one of those being, of course, the Blavatnik School of Government. And it's culminated to have over 2,000 Luksic scholars being able to participate. And so we thought, okay, that's a good amount. What can we do to offer and connect them? What kind of platform? And that's when we created the Luksic Scholars community to continue offering post-program opportunities. I'll explain a bit more, but I did just want to point out the photo here in the top left. You'll actually see the dean and founder of the school, Nairi Woods. She came to visit Chile earlier this year. This is actually one of the longest standing programs that we have in public service since 2014. So it really just showcases this wonderful partnership that we've been able to build with the Blavatnik School, and of course showcases the interest on behalf of the school to have Chileans and Chilean representation in their cohorts. So in terms of what our international programs look like, there are 3 types. We'll, of course, focus today on the master scholarships. These are full scholarships at the postgraduate level. So you're talking about coverage of tuition, a living stipend, the arrival costs. So if you need to put down a deposit for accommodation, or your flights, of course, getting to and from, which from Chile can be quite expensive, of course, and that is all covered. In terms of research, we do have 2 fellowships for academics, a doctorate in political science, and then we also offer short courses here in Chile. We actually did one recently this year with the Blavatnik School of Government for professors in schools of government. So these are shorter certification programs that take place with international experts here in Chile. So anyone who forms part of these programs is then invited to the Luksic Scholars community, which is our international alumni network of scholars. So here's to give sort of a snapshot of where the Luksic scholarships are available in the world for master's programs. Of course, we will be focusing on the Master of Public Policy with the Blavatnik School of Government, but you can see we also have programs in the US, others in the UK, one here actually in Santiago with a component there in MIT, Edinburgh, Beijing, China, and France. And so if you say, Gabby, okay, that's great, loving all these scholarships, but how do I apply? How do I access them? The first step would be, of course, to research. So you need to understand the admissions and selection criteria for the programs of your interest. Once you are eligible and you can check all of those off, you can then apply to the program and the scholarship via the university, essentially following all of their admissions and financial aid protocols. And of course, Beatriz will explain a bit more about what Oxford's protocols look like, and then you will await a response from the university. They will let you know on the status of your scholarship. We are actually, as a foundation, the last to find out. So definitely, you don't actually even need to have prior contact with us as a foundation. It all goes through the university. And I also just wanted to mention here, you do not need to return to Chile upon completion of any of these programs. So as for a wonderful scholarship opportunity for Blavatnik School of Government's Master of Public Policy, as I mentioned, this partnership has been since 2014, and since then 20 scholars to date have been able to complete a Master of Public, well actually 3 are on program now, but have been supported to do this master program. You are living there in Oxford, essentially you're living amongst books. They have some of the most oldest renowned libraries in the world, so I would say it really lends itself to that wonderful learning environment. But then you also have the campus at BSG where it's this more modern, yet really inviting and warm building, essentially wonderful for your studies. They have an extremely international cohort. I know Beatriz will talk a bit more about that, but it really lends itself to giving that global perspective because the cohort is so internationally diverse. They have a very strong multidisciplinary curriculum. And of course, I would say a very strong emphasis in leadership development. How do you walk into a room and negotiate in a multicultural environment, give a speech, for example. So those are the types of aspects that you have involved in this master's program. In terms of the scholarship eligibility, it is for Chilean candidates accepted onto the Master of Public Policy program. I did want to mention here that the scholarship also includes cost for the summer project, which Beatriz, I think, will touch upon more, and Patricio, but it's essentially an internship in which you apply the skills learned after your classes have been completed. So in terms of the application deadline, or sort of what these date ranges look like each year, they open in September, close in January. We do understand that these application processes can be a bit lengthy if you do not get to it this year. This opportunity is annual, so next year, 2 years down the line, it will be available for you. And then just lastly, before I pass it over to Dr. Richenda, I did just want to note, in terms of the Luksic Foundation and the support, we are very grateful to be able to offer and provide a full scholarship and have that financial aid available for you. But we also do really hope to provide institutional support. So before and during and after your program, we invited Patricio and the rest of the cohort and all of those going to do a master's program abroad here in the office. We had a breakfast for them. We want to connect you with the previous scholars who are there on campus before you actually arrive, so you can get in touch with them, ask them for their advice, you know, if they're going to have that insight knowledge. So we really want to create and foster those connections There is a community waiting for you. Of course, you have BSG also, they're very strong institutional support, but we are also here. And then post-program, you can apply for a fund that's up to $5,000. That's to support any sort of personal or professional initiative you're doing. You're writing a book, you want to go to a conference, invite an international expert to give a conference, for example, those types of initiatives we can also help with. So we are very lucky to be partnering with BSG and have them here on this information session today. We're very much looking forward to the next Luksic Scholar. So with that said, I will stop sharing and pass the word over to Dr. Achanda.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gabrielle, for such a brilliant introduction, including such a brilliant introduction to the Blavatnik School of Government and Oxford. Gabrielle was recently in Oxford, and so she was able, I think, to just give a really excited sort of, flavour of what it is like. So I'm Director of Admissions at the Blavatnik School, and I have had the honour of looking at candidates and applications for our Master of Public Policy since its inception. We are currently educating our 13th group of Master of Public Policy students, and we're now recruiting for our 14th year group. And just brilliant that you're interested and that you're participating in this call today. So the Blavatnik School of Government was formed in 2011 and it opened its doors to its first group of students for the Master of Public Policy in 2012. It is, of course, part of the University of Oxford, which is the oldest university in the world and on most rankings, and certainly our most favoured ranking, the best university in the world. So the school is housed within an incredible institution, an incredible body and site of knowledge and just understanding and commitment to really wanting to understand challenges that are presenting all around the world. And the Blavatnik School of Government was formed particularly because it wanted to develop a more applied course and a more applied set of sort of, skills and teaching activities that really got to the problems and the challenges facing governments today. So we started the Master of Public Policy, which is our biggest and our flagship course. We do have other degree programs, the Master of Public Research, which is like a follow-on for the MPP for some people who want to do that, and our DPhil in public policy. But the Master of Public Policy is the biggest program, and this year we have over 150 students studying for that particular degree. Now, we developed this degree 13 years ago, and since we've developed it, we've continued to innovate. So it is always absolutely up to date, exciting, new, vibrant, and just completely focused on what the current issues are in the world. And we formed it really focusing on the vision that we have for the world, which is a world better led, better served, and better governed. And the way that we try to help deliver this through the school is in 3 different ways: teaching, including on our Master of Public Policy; researching, always doing research that is deeply applied to the challenges of governments around the world today; and engaging directly with governments, be it in advisory positions in the context of doing research that speaks to problems that governments are grappling with themselves, and of course teaching current and future leaders in the space of public policy. So in the context of the Master of Public Policy, we designed a programme that draws from a range of different academic disciplines: foundations, which is philosophy; economics; law; political science, all the different sort of, disciplines that speak to the very real challenges that you need to be on top of if you're going to really think about how to solve and fix some of the public policy challenges facing us. So each and every student reads and studies these different disciplinary aspects, all in the context of how does it apply to public policy analysis. And they also do lots of much more sort of, professional skills that all relate to policy and its development. So it's an incredibly immersive, rich, but continually applied programme. And you also have opportunities to dive into areas of particular interest to you. through in the third term. You do option papers, and you also get the opportunity to do a summer placement, which you spend time in an organisation that allows you to really focus in on challenges that are of particular concern to you. So it's an absolutely wonderful programme. It's a wonderful school, but the most wonderful thing about the Blavatnik School of Government is the students that come here. Gabrielle has already touched on the diversity of the programme, and Beatrice is going to give you a flavour of our class this year that just showcases some of the global spread and reach of our candidates. But people aren't just diverse in the context of the different countries that they come from. They're diverse in terms of the policy areas that they want to focus on. They're diverse in terms of the levels of experience. So we have some people who are very new and sort of, young, and they're quite fresh out of university, but the vast majority of people come with more than 2 years experience in the professional workplace, and some significantly more than that. So we have so much diversity in that context, age, disciplinary, but we also have diversity in terms of sort of the socioeconomic backgrounds that our students come from. And a big part of how we achieve that is through partnering with organisations such as Luksic to help us deliver an incredible array of scholarships, so that the very best students who apply to our programme are not just accepted onto our programme, but are enabled to come. So with huge thanks to Luksic for helping us to make that possible. Now, when we do our selections, we're looking essentially at 3 different criteria. We're looking at academic and analytical ability, we're looking at commitment to public service, and we're looking at leadership, impact, and potential. And every application that we receive, we really carefully look across all of those dimensions. And I just want to stress this because some people get worried and they say, oh, I'm not sure if my grades were completely brilliant when I studied my undergraduate degree. And in the main, we would be looking in the Chilean context for an academic result that was about 5.5 out of 7 or above. But please, if you have under that, don't let that put you off applying, because we will also be looking at the strength of your commitment to service and at the strength of your capacity to show leadership in what you do. And every application that we look at is a holistic read. So I could go on and on and on, but I just hope that gives you a flavour of the school, the MPP, and who we're looking for. And I will now turn to Beatrice to give a little bit more detail about some of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Richanda. I'll now start sharing my screen. Hopefully it will work. Lovely. So I think you should now be able to see my slides. Is that right?
Yes,
Lovely.
perfect.
So thank you, Richanda. I'll now try to go on to slightly more specific practical side of things, because I'm sure you're all quite interested as well in the how to actually go about applying. So first of all, I'll tell you a little bit, some facts and figures about our program. Of course, Gabrielle and Richenda have both touched on this, but our student community is hugely diverse in so many ways. But here, for example, you can see a map that shows all of the countries that our current students this year come from. So this year we have 156 MPP students, and they come from 61 different countries, or 63 if you include dual nationals. Our cohort this year is aged from 20 to 46 years old, with an average of about 29. And we've got quite a close, even gender split. As our school community and our student community continues to grow, almost every year we're delighted to see new countries represented in our cohort. So countries that we've never had students from. And this year we're really pleased to welcome our first student from Cameroon, for example. And as Richenda has touched on, we're also really pleased to say that this year 90% of our students come with funding. Of course, our program's quite an expensive one, and we don't want funding to be a barrier to students being able to come and study with us. So we're very lucky to work with really generous donors and foundations like the Luksic Foundation that have made it possible that this year 79% have come with full funding that covers their full course fees at the very least, and an additional 11% that come with some form of partial funding. So that's kind of the hard facts about this year's cohort. Now, to tell you a little bit more about the course structure, of course, Richenda has already touched on this, but hopefully this kind of visual structure will also help you get a bit of a better understanding of the program. So firstly, just to say, Oxford loves making up words pretty much. So there's 3 terms in Oxford: Michaelmas, Hilary, and Trinity. It's just the first, second, and third term in the year. As you can see here, the first 2 terms are mostly taken up by compulsory modules that all of our students will be taking, things like foundations of public policy, economics for public policy, politics of policy making, law, and so on. Then the bulk of your 3rd term, Trinity term, is taken up by your optional modules. Every year, our students get to pick from a huge range. I think there's usually over 20 modules that they can choose from. To give you a flavor, there's things like challenges of policy design, challenges in tax policy, digital economy and regulation, health policy, national and local climate policy, and so on. Just huge range of options to pick from. These do change year to year, both based on demand from the students and also on teaching availability. But as I say, there's always around at least 20 to pick from. So that's the first 3 terms. Then throughout the year, over the 3 terms, you also get a number of applied policy modules, which are also optional. And you also get a careers and professional skills program. These are a huge range of sessions on a huge range of topics, but always with a focus of helping you develop and acquire and enhance all of the skills that you need for a successful career in public policy. And then finally, as Richenda's also mentioned, over the summer, you take part in a summer placement, summer project, which is usually 6-ish weeks of work either with an organization, engage in some kind of policy work. So that can be a government department, it can be a policy unit in a private sector organization, it can be a not-for-profit or a research institute, or it can be a placement at Oxford that allows you to reflect on an idea, whether that's by doing independent desk-based research or working on a faculty-led project. And then based on your time on this summer placement, you'll then be asked to write a policy report, which is the final big piece of writing that you'll be doing on your MPP, focusing on a policy issue that you're really passionate about. So that's kind of the year structure. It is an intensive 1-year program. We know that a lot of other MPPs are 2 years, but instead ours is really condensed into a year. So it's from September to September, and it offers a really distinctive approach to learning with a lot of focus on the practical skills needed. So hopefully that's a little bit helpful to see it kind of represented visually in a kind of structure way. And now I'll move on to our selection criteria. Of course, Richenda's already mentioned, but once again, we just think it's a really important part of the application process. If you know what we're looking for, then you can really target how you write your application. So as Richenda's mentioned, our 3 main selection criteria are the academic analytical excellence. Of course, it's a degree at Oxford, and it is a demanding and intense program designed for students with a high level of academic ability. So your grades are a really key part of how we assess your application. But as Richenda said, the applications are all assessed holistically. So even if you're worried that you don't quite meet what you think is the equivalence, you can still apply. We will still consider your application across all 3 of these criteria. So the second and third are the strong commitment to public service and the ability to show leadership and impact. And people often ask, in what part of the application do I show this? How do I show that? And the reality is that all applicants, all students have very different backgrounds, have very different career trajectories and focuses. So there isn't a one way to do the application. We want to see all of these 3 things across your whole application, but there isn't one specific way to do it. So it really depends on, what you think you should showcase and what you think your biggest strengths are. But this is what we'll be looking for throughout your application. So now to give you a little bit of the more practical how to apply, what's the process, what's the timeline. So applications for studying with us in 25-26, so starting next September, have opened. And the deadline to apply is in early January. I believe it's Thursday, 9th of January. but we do encourage everyone to apply as early as possible, and really wherever possible before Christmas and the New Year. This gives you enough time to ensure that your application really has everything that it needs, and it also gives you time to ensure your referees have enough time to submit their supporting statements, because we need to have your references by the application deadline ideally, and you want to make sure that they've got enough time to actually write their references and submit them, especially if they're going away for, for the winter break. I won't go into detail about the specific documents that you need in your application because it's all really well laid out in our website, but essentially what you need is a CV, a personal statement, a reflective policy essay, a public service essay, all of the transcripts from all of the higher education degrees you've done to date, and you need 3 references, at least one of which has to be academic. So I would say do look very closely at our application guidance and our how to apply, because our personal statement and our 2 essays that we require aren't just any personal statement and any essays. We have specific requirements about what we want you to submit, what we want you to address, and what questions you should be answering. So you should look really closely at our guidance. But again, I would recommend that you look at our website because I don't want to give you any wrong information on the spot. So yes, that's the main bits. Then I've added here on our screen a little bit of information about English language requirement, because I know that that is one of the areas that people often ask about. So in terms of the English language, at Oxford, all students do need to demonstrate a high level of English language ability and therefore need to meet a requirement before being able to join us as students. This usually means that you'll need to take an English language test, either a TOEFL or an IELTS, for example, and you must meet the university's higher level requirement, which is, as I say, on the screen now. Hopefully you can see that. It has to be obtained at least 2 years, well, no longer than 2 years before the start of the program. So if you're applying now to study with us in September 2025, you have to have taken the test no earlier than September 2023. However, we really do want you at this stage to focus on your application and on making the best application possible. So you don't need to worry about your English language test or your test results before you've applied. If you apply now and you don't meet the English language requirement or you haven't taken a test yet, that's fine. You won't be at any disadvantage. It just means that if you're successful in getting an offer, the offer will be conditional and it will be giving you the condition to meet the English language higher level. You'll have then until the end of May, 31st of May, to meet your English language requirement and any other conditions that you have been given. We do encourage everyone to try and book their tests as early as possible because the test centers do tend to be quite busy and booked out, but you don't need to worry about it before applying. Just focus on your application at this stage, and then you can think about it if you get an offer. There are certain circumstances in which students can get a waiver of the English language condition, but they're quite specific things like being a national and resident of a UKVI country, having studied in a UKVI country very recently, or being a current Oxford student. So the vast majority of applicants that are overseas will need to do an English language test. Then one other area I do get a lot of questions about is about references. So you're required to submit at least 3, and we do want at least one of them to be academic. We understand that often applicants have been out of higher education for a long time if you finished your studies, more than a few years ago, and might not want or might struggle to find an academic reference. It's not the end of the world if you don't have one. We will still accept your application and assess it, but it is one of our requirements, and therefore the admissions committee really does expect to see at least one academic reference in your application. So we would encourage you to start thinking about who your referees could be as soon as possible and reaching out to them, letting them know that they're going to receive a request to submit a reference. Otherwise, if you haven't received it in time, unfortunately, it might make your application look incomplete if it's not come in time. So those are kind of the bits that we get the most questions about in terms of how to apply. And now, of course, Gabrielle has already given us loads of information about the Luksic Scholarship, but just to reiterate and give you maybe a little bit more information, we're really excited that we're able to award 3 Luksic Scholarships each year. Of course, it is just for our MPP program. It's not eligible for any other study degrees. And in order to be eligible, you have to be a Chilean national and ordinarily resident in Chile. The scholarship covers the full tuition for the MPP, which is currently over £50,000, which of course is quite a lot of money, as well as a living allowance that should cover your expenses for, the duration of living in Oxford for 12 months. So the amount for this is based on what the university each year estimates that living in Oxford costs. And that hasn't been confirmed for next year yet. But for instance, this year, our current students will be receiving a little over £19,000 for the whole year. So hopefully more than enough to live in Oxford for a year, even though Oxford is quite an expensive city. In addition, there is also a one-time relocation expenses bursary that you get to help you, as Gabrielle mentioned, with things like the flights into the UK, if you need to pay a deposit for your housing, and any other kind of upfront costs that you have when moving here. Then there also is the possibility to apply for a project bursary, a summer project bursary that is essentially an extra amount of money to support you during your summer project. In order to be considered for the scholarship, you'll be really glad to know that, again, we don't want you to have to worry when you're applying. We just want you to focus on your application. So at this stage, you don't really need to do anything in order to be considered for the Luksic Scholarship. You just have to apply by the 9th of January deadline, as I said. And if you're successful in getting an offer, we'll be in touch with you in March to confirm you've had an offer. And at that time, we'll send you a link to what we call our scholarship questionnaire. This is an online questionnaire that will ask you a number of questions about yourself and will help us determine which ones of our scholarships you're eligible for. As long as you complete that questionnaire by the deadline that we give you in March, you will be considered for all of our scholarships that you're eligible for. So at this stage, when you're focused on applying, don't need to worry about the funding. We'll deal with that afterwards. And finally, of course, we've been talking a lot about the school and about all of the amazing things that the Blavatnik School of Government offers. But I think it's also really helpful to remember that the Blavatnik School is just one of the departments at the wider University of Oxford. And Oxford is, of course, a college system university. So not only would you become a student at the Blavatnik School of Government, you'd also become a member of the university and of one of the colleges. Of course, the colleges, I think everyone here will agree with me, are endlessly confusing. Oxford does like to make things as convoluted as possible sometimes, but it essentially just means that you don't just get one area and one system of support and of resources and of community. You get access not just to us at the school, but also the university-wide facilities for sports, fitness, art, music, theatre. You get access to the university-wide student groups, societies, sports clubs, and a huge range of libraries as well. And then through your college, you get access to another source of community. You get access to more pastoral and welfare services. The colleges have their own facilities as well. Of course, some of them will, look very Harry Potter, Oxford style. Others are more modern. They're all very different, but they all kind of just give you another source of incredible support and, more of the Oxford experience, so to speak. So yes, just to emphasize that there's always so much to do in Oxford. I mean, I'm sure Patricia would tell us about it shortly, but there's kind of endless opportunities both within the school, the university, your college, and just so much to learn and so much to do. So I think that is it for me. Thank you. And of course, you've got our links to our social media and our website there. And as Gabrielle said, please do feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions at all as well. And I will now pass on to Tricio.
Perfect. Okay, I will start to share my screen. So we have Patricio. Patricio, congrats on graduating this year. I'm sure it was a very intense year. Stealing your words, best year of your life, though. So we're looking forward to hear more of that. And Patricio was kind enough to create a presentation for us. So seems like he's still sort of in that student-focused mindset. Patricio, welcome. It would be great if you could introduce yourself, and then I'll go ahead and share your slides as you go along to sharing your story.
Perfect. Thank you for the invitation, Gabriel, and the school. I offer my apologies because I'm a little congested. I arrived from the UK yesterday, and it was so cold in the UK. Even it was snowing in Oxford, a beautiful panoramic in Oxford these days. Well, I'm Patricio Alvarez. I'm from Rancagua, but I have lived in some regions in the country. From a young age, I felt a strong calling for public service and participated in many social organizations. I studied business administration, and in Chile is well known by Ingeniería Comercial. But after that, my studies in the university, and although I received a job offer from Coca-Cola Argentina, I decided to work for my local municipality, Rancagua, managing public contracts, particularly for work infrastructure. Later, I became the regional director of planning of public ministry works in O'Higgins regions. That was a position, both political and technical role. And my responsibilities included developing this infrastructure portfolio and overseeing budget execution. I think working in a government is an invaluable learning experience. And after that, I moved to Chiloé Island for 4 years to serve as director of a foundation, the Chiloé Heritage Churches Foundation, managing the UNESCO World Heritage Site. Living in Chiloé, well, with significant limitation, to be honest, it was an incredible educational experience, I think, allowing me to better understand the reality of Chile, not just Santiago, the capital of Chile, but also the situation in the south, in the extreme regions. For that reason, one of my reasons to pursue a Master of Public Policy was that, to understand the policy design and the implementation of the solution to address complex social challenges in Chile. One of the, I'm gonna explain some of my experience in Oxford. First, I want to talk about the arrival process, because always it's difficult to apply for this kind of program. It's so competitive process, but I think Oxford was remarkable, well organized and supported. I think from the beginning, when you receive an letter offer in March, the Blavatnik School detail all the process after that and receive the orientation that you need to follow the following step. I think that is so great for people who apply for first time to this kind of program in outside abroad. I think maybe can I talk about my academic experience, because in my case I have 7 or 8 years of experience, and I'm looking for a program that helped me to develop some soft skill, leadership skill. I didn't look for an academic program. I think this program is so professional. Program is so diverse, and I think you have a lot of enriched discussions, offering global insights into policy challenges. I think that's for that reason that is told us it's so intense program. It's just 1 year, but it's so intense because you don't have just, well, you have everyday classes, but you have a lot of activities at the same time when you can develop your skill with your classmate. I think other reasons to during my academic experience in Oxford was they highly interacted with a strong emphasis on practical application through case studies, simulation, project group. I think I remember the North Korea simulation, that is, even in that project, it was awarded in the UK for I think the great insight to people to can negotiate in difficult times. I think another reason is the diverse cohort. I think even in my cohort, we were, I don't know, remember 150, but from 62 countries. In Latin America, we were 15 Latin people, students. I think that is so diverse. You have classmates from Pakistan, from Nigeria, from the US, Australia, many people from Australia, and you can discuss with a global perspective some challenges we're facing in our countries. After my, well, I'm gonna explain this slide even in the presentation. You don't have, you have the opportunity to talk with global leaders, no, world-class academics and expert practitioner. You can see in the slide, for example, we have a very interesting activity with the Secretary Clinton, with Nancy Pelosi, former Speaker of the House. In the case of Ban Ki-moon and Nobel Peace Prize Juan Manuel Santos, the school organized this kind of activities. The dean interview important people every week or every 2 weeks. But at the same time, the other department and the colleges organize a lot of activities. For example, if you are interested in the climate change, in the human rights, you can go to this kind of department. They organize weekly these kind of activities. And it's so interesting because you have a very intimate conversation with these leaders in Oxford. In the second slide, yeah, you live in Oxford. I think Beatrice told us is like a Harry Potter style, this kind of living, this immersion in a vibrant and diverse community. You have this formal dinner every week. You are a member of a college. The college organizes this formal dinner. You can participate. You can invite even your family to participate in these formal dinners, and you can spend time with people from different countries, from different areas. I remember people who were in the Microsoft, people who work in White House, and they share their experience, and we talk about our problems in Chile, Latin America. And I think that is the most valuable experience in Oxford, is to talk about what is the challenges now we are facing as humanity. In this case, in the middle photo, a picture, for example, is the Oxford Union. They organize every week activities with the community in Oxford, and well, typically formal dinner in the colleges. And the other, yeah, the next slide. Thank you. Well, you can be a member of many society, and you can access an extracurricular activities. In my case, for example, I was member of Oxford Diplomatic Society. I went to Pakistan. I never thought to be in Pakistan before to go to Oxford, because it's not a country easily to go, no? For that reason, when we received this invitation from the government of Pakistan, I applied for this trip, because it was amazing experience to talk with the government, with the Prime Minister of Pakistan, with authorities, and to evaluate, to talk about the situation in the regions. We were even in the news, because it was for them was very it was very important to a delegation from Oxford University visiting in Islamabad. We even in one of the pictures we talk about the United Nations group based in Pakistan. I think you can access to these activities is a great value for Oxford. I think you can stay all day in the school. You have classes in the school, but after classes, you have even important activities like to share with your classmate, to share with classmates from the colleges, another department. You learn a lot from other people who study in physics, mathematics. I think that is the most important strengthening points from Oxford life. Yeah, and the last, yeah, I think the summer project is part of the program of MPP. The last two, well, from June to August or September, it depends on your application to some international organizations. In my case, I did my summer project in Washington, D.C., in the Inter-American Development Bank. I applied for this internship. You can apply for other organizations, but I think that I want to say that the most important, you have the support from Luksic Foundation. Yeah, because many international organizations offer places but without salary or without payment. And it's so difficult to live in New York without salary. And for that reason, for example, people apply for internship in United Nations headquarters, and Luksic Foundation, in the case of the Chilean students, the Luksic Scholar, they supported us this kind of trip to Washington. I remember the Chilean this year, Benjamin went to Colombia, in my case in Washington, D.C., and we had the support from Luksic Foundation. And I went to this, unless I want to say the most important, I think, in the case of Luksic Foundation support is not just the financial support. I think you are a member of a community. You always receive an email or a call from the Luksic Foundation to say how is going the program, how is the best way to support you in your plan, in your ideas. They every year offer even some grant to organize activities in our university. In my case, for example, we organized 2 activities with former minister of Chile, Rodrigo Valdés, now the INF chief department in Washington, and other former authorities in Chile, and always come with the support of Luksic Foundation. I think it's not just financial. You are part of a community, and that's the most important, I think, at least for me. Now in Chile, and it's so important to have this connection because it's so grateful for my career.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Patricio. I think this presentation was wonderful. It really brings to life your experience, seeing the photos, not just talking about them. So thank you for preparing this for us. And we really hope those in the audience really got a great insight as to what this program offers, how you can contribute to a program like this, and how the program can also support you in your professional and academic goals and